feel it? Can you feel the vibration of life everywhere now? It's happening. I just feel so happy right now. Spring is really here. And it is 11:30 in the evening, and as you can see, the bright nights have now started. And that is my prime time of the year. Now my sleeping soul is waking up. Like I don't know what to do with myself. Have you ever had that feeling when something is just so beautiful and you just feel this overwhelm of wonder? And all the sounds everywhere, some birds singing, and yeah, there's just so much life waking up. It's not only me. It's certainly not only me. I was done with the work for today, so I went home from my art studio and I saw the lake, and it's mirror-like, and the forest on the other side, it just took my breath away. The ice melted away completely from the lake like 5-6 days ago. So we had some days now with really warm weather, like warmer than we usually have in the summer. I'm just really grateful. As a lot of you know, this winter was so hard. I don't really know why, I just felt completely drained. I felt like my body was dying. And now I'm just... I got my life back. That's how it feels like. I made it to the other side. Or I died and I came to heaven. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's like a car coming on the other side of the lake. And because it's so quiet here, when one car drives on the other side of the lake on the dirt road, it echoes like crazy. Or not echoes, but the sound is just like a big jet plane is coming or something. But that's because it's really quiet here, and now I'm used to it. But I remember when I moved here many years ago now, what is it, 13-14 years ago? Then it was such a profound feeling to hear the silence for the first time. So maybe I should say hello everybody and welcome to a new, just spontaneous video. I had no plans to do this, but I felt so much inspiration to just capture this. It's been a really long day today. I'm quite tired, but yeah, as I said, when I went from my art studio, I just couldn't go home. I wanted to go out and breathe life. It's like all the tiredness disappeared. But I'm actually gonna go home now anyway and get some sleep because I want to go up early tomorrow and I want to take a swim, a first swim in the lake now since the ice melted. Good night everybody. I see you tomorrow. Mwah. Nanook. It's very nice to just sit here and watch Nanook enjoying life. That's like the best thing in the world.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I think this is top 3 the things he loves to do most in life. To swim in a quiet lake and just walk around. And I think also it's very easy for him to walk. He doesn't feel any pain. We're like, you know, cheesy parents just looking at our little fluffy baby swimming. Come on, aren't you gonna have a little swim? She just follows us everywhere.
You're like a dog. A small dog.
She's done that since she was a kitten. Ouch! Ah! I love my balcony. I love this balcony. Just stepping out from my art studio and just being among the trees, the moon, the beautiful sunset colors on the sky. Look at these little gang. So much cuteness, I can't handle it. I don't know what it is with this music, but I feel very happy when I hear it. I've told about it before, but when I got this house, it was left with all the stuff inside it, so there was a bunch of these old tapes that I play very much. This is from 1978. It is so warm outside today. It feels a bit strange though, because it feels like yesterday that I was walking through deep snow. It's really hard to go inside and work on stuff when it's this nice weather. So I'm gonna take my work outside. I actually have some paintings that are ready. They are finished paintings, but there's still a lot of work on them. I need to sign some of them. I need to paint the sides. I need to varnish them. all the preparations. So I just had an idea that I might do it outside here on the table so that I can be in the sun while doing some stuff that needs to be done. Good evening, everybody. So I took the car and drove out on these forest gravel roads, because now you actually can do that. It always takes some time after the snow has melted until you can drive on these forest roads. The ice in the ground has to let go first, otherwise you just sink down in mud. Now I can drive out on these roads, and that is like a huge freedom for me. I love to take the car and just explore new areas and just find new beautiful places. And you're all alone. Look at this. Do you see the beauty? There is something with these lonely forest roads that is just very meaningful to me, or it's really like a symbol for freedom. And I think it has to do with mosquitoes are already here. But I think it has to do with that when I was young, like when we came here to the north, we did in the summers. And I have very early memories from when we took the car in the evenings and went out on these forest roads, and we looked for moose and bears, and it was this mystic feeling in the car, and like everyone was squeezed together in the car. Sometimes we were even more than there is seats, And there was something about that feeling when we drove out. And sometimes Tage joined, my grand uncle Tage. He lives in the village. And I loved when he joined, because then it just added like an extra spark of excitement. So those are one of the earliest memories I have of this place. I think as a small child I felt my very first taste of freedom when I was here, and that's why I ended up longing for this my whole life up until I moved here, because I couldn't feel the same freedom in like a town or a city. Here I felt like I could be all alone, just me in the forest, and it was like a shimmer over these landscapes. My grandfather, Franz, he was always telling stories about how I got lost in the forest, and then a big bear came and saved me, and I got to ride on his back. Yeah, he took me home to our cabin. And he always told these stories like they were just made up in the moment. And it was so nice to sit with him. And he told me these stories about the forest, and that also created a special feeling. Like I connected with these lands through his stories, and it made it feel like home instead of like fear, because I guess it's common to also feel like the forest is something to be scared of, but I never felt that way because of that atmosphere that he built up. So now, many years later, I am grown up and I am driving on these forest roads myself, and it feels amazing. I have no idea what time it is, maybe 8, 9 something, and the sun is still shining. I'm gonna head back to my art studio and continue preparing my paintings. I just needed a forest break and to soak in some of this like explosion of energy. All the trees are just blooming out for every second. It's amazing. And I really wish you could smell the air through the screen. Like it's the best smell. All right, let's head back to the art studio. There's seagulls. Can you hear them? Sometimes seagulls comes here. Often on rainy days. I don't like the sound of seagulls because it reminds me of when we had a sailing boat when I was younger. It was just a short period of time. I became very, very scared of water and the sea. And every time we went to the harbor to, work on the boat, and yeah, I just hated it. And of course you always heard the seagulls in the background when you were in the harbor. So the sea has not really been my thing. A part of me really loves the sea, but I just don't like to be out on it. I want to be on the beach looking at it or just swimming in it, but I don't want to be out on a boat. I feel very, very, I can't find the right word. Just out of control, ungrounded, lost at sea. No, the mosquitoes are starting to become annoying now. We got like 5 days and now the mosquitoes are here. But they are not that bad yet. You can still be outside. And it's so nice to be outside like this and work. I wish I could be doing this like all summer in the evenings. I'm gonna frame these paintings, so in a way you're not gonna see this border anyway. But in case, the new owners of the painting wanna take away the frame for some reason, then it's nice that it looks, clean. I just also want to add that the reason to why I became scared of the sea is because me and my family went to Denmark with our little sailing boat, and we were all so excited. But unfortunately there was not a storm, but it came huge waves when we were out on the sea, and I was seasick for 10 plus hours, and I thought we were gonna die. I really thought. I gave up at that time. I thought my parents was gonna fall down in the sea, and us kids, we were tied to the boat with this kind of rope, so if the boat did like this we wouldn't fall. But I could only think of the fear when the boat sinks and I will be attached to the boat, so I can't swim up. That was just a really scary moment. And my parents were scared too. There was a part there when we were close to the harbor in Denmark. It was so hard to get control of the boat. My parents said that there were people standing on the harbor watching us, just floating around with a little sailing boat in these huge waves, and it was a big risk that the boat would crash into the rocks, or how to say. And after that I became extremely fearful of boats. Every time we went out with the boat and it just turned a little bit like this, I just screamed. And I even became scared of water. If my brother turned on the tap too much when he was gonna grab a glass of water, I just screamed because I thought the whole house would be filled with water. I remember one time there was a leak from the roof into our house, and it was dripping water from the roof, slowly dripping, and I thought we were gonna die because I thought that the house would get full of water. So that definitely affected me. I mean, there was no way we could have foreseen these huge waves coming in. You know, every time you're on the sea, there's like a risk, you know, you never really know how's the weather gonna turn. My parents ended up selling the sailing boat because, they saw that I was so anxious every time we went to the harbor. So they felt like there's no point of having a boat when I just feel fearful around it. This is long time ago, and I don't really see myself as a person who is afraid of going out on boats, but I remember I was on this journey to Norway. I think it was like 2015, and I was there on like a peer trip. I was supposed to work and make advertisement for Northern Norway, because back then I had this blog in Sweden that was quite big. So yeah, it was like a trip. I wasn't getting paid or anything. It was just like a peer trip. I get the trip for free and I blogged about it. Then they signed me up to a lot of different activities that I was supposed to do. And there was this activity called whale safari, and I was super excited for it. We were going out on a boat to see whales. Yeah, I went down to the boat. There was lots of other tourists. But then as the boat started leaving the harbor and I saw that there was no land in the horizon, I freaked out. But not like I screamed or anything. I didn't want to like make a scene. But I've got like fear of dying. So I like in a way I've never felt before. So I actually have a film that I did on this trip. I was filming a little bit now and then, and you can see how scared I was. But so like 15-20 minutes after the boat left harbor, I went out to like the front deck because I thought it was safest to sit there when the boat is gonna sink, so I can jump off the front. You know, if you've seen Titanic, I was like ready. If I sit on the front, I can get a good jump. And then I sat down to write a text to my family in our WhatsApp group, and I was gonna, say that I probably will die now. And I'm totally serious. I really thought like, I'm gonna die. It sounds super weird when I say this, and I was in such a panic mode. But then there was this girl. She was also Swedish, and she came up to me and she saw that I was afraid, and she started speaking to me, and she was like an angel. She just calmed me down, so I didn't send this text to my family, which was good. They would have freaked out if they got a text of me saying goodbye. So the boat went out very far, maybe 2 hours out in the sea, and we did see whales, and that was a really nice moment. But then on the way back, that's when, of course, the storm came. Well, not a storm, but just huge waves. The weather changed, and the boat was like this. And most of the people went inside into like the little, the space underneath the boat, because there was like, I don't know, they could have coffee and stuff. But I, of course, couldn't go inside because I had to be ready to jump from the front of the boat. But I remember also that there was this man that also, I think he saw that I was afraid, because he stood out there with me, just like watching over me for all that time. He was also like an angel. I felt so safe that he stood there with me. I was holding on so tight to these metal things, you know, and I just, he stood there all the time out I guess he probably would have liked to go into and have a coffee and, you know, relax, but I think he stood there to give me safety. I wish I could thank him. If there is a chance that you, whoever stood there, see this, then please know that I'm very thankful that you were present there with me. I ended up getting super seasick, really seasick. I just throwed up the last hour. I had a very squeezed schedule when I was there in Norway, like I only could stay at a place a certain time. And when I come back to the harbor, I was so sick, I just went to the car and just passed out almost. But I knew I only had like 1 or 2 hours left before I had to take the flight back, because I was out on some kind of island, or how to say. I don't exactly remember where I was, but on that place where I was, there was also this huge beach called Bleikestranda, which is like white beach that I had seen on photos, and I really wanted to go there. When I had like 1 hour left, I just sat up in the car and I was like, I have to get to this beach before I have to go back. And I did. I took the car, I went out on the beach, and that was like, I've rarely felt so relieved in my whole life. It was like I died and I came back again. I just ran around on that beach for like 20 minutes because I only had 20 minutes to be there. It was like one of the most beautiful moments in my life. I can't explain why. I guess it was because I thought I would die for so many hours, and then I didn't. I survived and I got to be at that beach, and I was just so happy to be alive. Now the mosquitoes are getting really annoying, so I think I'm gonna take the stuff and go inside. Thank you for listening. Alright, have some coffee. Let's go out in the sun for a while, because I've been sitting here now for like an hour. Oh, wow. It's not so common in Sweden that we just wake up every day and it's so nice outside. We really have to take advantage of this time. Tomorrow it's going to be more cloudy again. But I feel very happy with these days. I don't feel like I should ask for more. Coffee on the stairs to my art studio. I think this is where coffee tastes the very best in the world. So this Saturday I will spend mostly here in my art studio and continue preparing the paintings and maybe start preparing some new paintings. I'm not sure if you can see a lot of the texture, but it has like a very mineral, earthy look. That's gonna be perfect for some pigment paintings. So now it's just gonna dry. I was in Stockholm last week, just for like 2-3 days. I usually go to Stockholm a couple of times every year because there's always some things that I have to do there, often work-related things. But I like to go there now and then because it's so different from here. I used to live in a big city a long time ago, and when I lived in a big city I didn't appreciate it at all. But now when I live here, I can really appreciate to go to a big city for a couple of days and do all these things that I don't do here. And one of the things I did now when I was in Stockholm is that I joined a podcast, which doesn't happen very often. It's a podcast created by Henrik Ståhl, and he's a famous actor, writer, podcaster, and just an overall very talented creator here in Sweden. And I've been following him on social media for many years. And he reached out to me a couple of months ago and asked me if I wanted to join his new podcast called Vandra med Henrik, which means Wander with Henrik. He has a very huge podcast in Sweden that's called Somna med Henrik, which means fall asleep with Henrik. And even though I was super honored by the question, my first thought was that no, I can't join a podcast because I never join podcasts anymore, at least. There was a time many years ago that I said yes to everything coming my way. Every interview, every article, every podcast, every opportunity to be seen, I guess. Because at that time I had a blog and I never really made a living out of that blog. So I thought if I just grow a little bit bigger, I will be able to make a living on it. And I think I also said yes to every opportunity because it was so new to me to get all these opportunities, you know? When you're not used to it, it feels like you have to say yes to everything. I was afraid if I said no to something, I would miss out, you know? Especially the first years when I lived here and my story became like a thing, that I moved from the city out here. I had like an interview at least once a week, mostly for like newspapers and magazines and stuff. And in a way I'm grateful that I did, because I learned a lot through it, and also I did grow a following of people that made it possible for me to continue my work. And so I don't regret it. I had to go through that time. And I'm also very grateful that my story felt inspiring to people. But I was so sick of it after a few years. Anyway, now I started talking about other things here, but I will tell you more about that time another time. Because I have a lot of things I want to share about it. But podcasts it feels like a quite new thing, at least to me. I joined a few podcasts many years ago, but that gave me even more anxiety afterwards. Every time I had joined a podcast, I felt so much anxiety about what I said and what I didn't say, because it made me very, very nervous, that setting. It was easier with getting interviewed and then having my words printed on like a piece of paper, because also with time that article will be forgotten in a way. But in a podcast it feels like what you say, it lives forever on the internet, you know? Yeah, I've just never liked being interviewed because I don't trust myself when I get too nervous, because I just say things to fill out the silence or to make someone else comfortable, or to say things that I think they expect me to say. I kind of fall away from myself in a way. I shape myself in a version that I think will fit best in the moment. Oh, now it got a bit dark. Sorry if the lighting is changing very much here. Anyway, I did a lot of these things back in the days, and suddenly I got fed up with that. because I felt so much anxiety afterwards. So, and I also think I burned out a little bit when it comes to that area, because suddenly if I got an email with someone asking if I could be interviewed or I could join your podcast or be on an event or have a speech or something, I just started crying because I just had enough. So after that I kinda shut off all that things. So if any one of you have ever reached out to me asking if I could join your podcast or something and I haven't answered or I've said no, please know that it's not about you or anything. I just really feel uncomfortable in these settings, and that is okay. Now I know it's okay. We don't have to like everything. That's the good thing about becoming older, that you learn what is for you and what is not for you. Anyway, now we have a long story here, me talking about how much I hate podcasts. I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. That's like, it has been like a savior many times, I think. So when Henrik reached out asking about if I can join his new podcast, Vandra med Henrik, I definitely thought that it would be a no. But then I started listening to this podcast, and it was so different from everything I've ever listened to before. Henrik, he has a very unique style of podcasting, both in his main podcast, Somna med Henrik, the Fall Asleep podcast, and this podcast, The Wander with Henrik. They are both kind of the same vibe because he doesn't use any script, he doesn't plan ahead what he's going to talk about. He just shares in the moment and he doesn't cut or edit anything. So when I started listening to this Wander with Henrik, for me I felt like I got a break from all the noise. It was just him walking around. It could be in the forest or in the city, and sometimes he had guests. They didn't talk like it was an interview. It didn't feel like it was content, in that sense. It felt more like listening to two friends talking. It was just very relaxed, and sometimes it's just silence and you just hear some birds or footsteps, or it made me think about how much information I usually feed myself with when I listen to normal podcasts. I listen to a lot of different podcasts that I really love, and they mean a lot to me too. I love to listen to these interviews with experts in different areas talking about the brain or how to manifest your life, or spirituality, or what you should eat to live longer. Like, I think all of these things are super interesting, but it can also be exhausting to be fed with so much information about things and how you can do to become better, or how you can run faster or sleep better or breathe or anything. It was an eye-opener for me in a way, because I feed myself with these kinds of information so much that sometimes I just feel like I'm so behind. I don't know how to do anything. There's so much to learn. I feel like I'm gonna talk 15 hours about this. I don't know. I was gonna keep it short, but it seems like I can't. So after listening to a few episodes on Henrik's podcast, I immediately felt like, yes, I want to do this. If I'm gonna join one more podcast in my life, it's gonna be this one, because it fits me so well. And also, maybe mostly, I just felt like it would be such an honor to meet him in real life, because he's such an interesting person with a lot of depths, and he has a very special sense of humor and share a lot of like raw, honest thoughts, and it's so hard to explain in English. I think you kind of have to see for yourself to understand it. So I said yes to join the podcast, and I am honestly so grateful that I did that, even though I had to jump out of my comfort zone a little bit. But it felt so easy. It felt so natural, and I didn't have any anxiety afterwards, and I'm so grateful for that day. And the episode is now live it's been live for a week, I think. So I guess a lot of you have maybe already heard about this since I shared it on my social media channels. But if you haven't listened to it yet, you can find it in the link in the description to this video. Or actually you can find this episode everywhere where you listen to podcasts. I usually listen mostly on Spotify, but you can just search for Vandra med Henrik. The thing though is that it's not in Swedish. No. No, it's not in English, I mean. But Henrik made a translation, a transcript, where you can read and follow along as we talk. I understand that it's not the same thing to listen to a podcast in a language you don't understand, because I know that most of you watching are not Swedish, but if you feel curious to listen, you can find the links below, both to the episode and the translation. Yeah, I know also I have a lot of followers that want to learn Swedish, so maybe this is a good reason. But I also know that I talk really quick when I'm a bit nervous. I heard that when I listened to it. And I also talk very quick when I'm very excited about a subject. I talk much faster in Swedish, I think. This one is so big. I have never ever painted a painting this big before. I love to paint big paintings, but I feel a bit fearful of getting started on this size because they are just so big and nice, and I just want to make the most out of it, and yeah, then I can't, you know. I should start preparing one of them with some texture, because why not? Let's break some more walls within ourselves. That's needed. Now it is 6:30 in the evening, and I think it's about time to go home and eat dinner and hang out with Johan and Nanok a little bit. But I've had an amazing day in the art studio. I love being here. My little paradise. I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for spending your precious time watching my videos. It means a lot to me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed meeting the spring with me, because now it is certainly here. I hope you're all having a really good week, and please take care of yourself and each other. I'm sending you tons of love. Mwah! I see you soon. Bye bye.